So this week I've got some tropical anthuriums and a beautiful Vanda orchid. Come and join me and let's see what we can create. This week I've got a tall glass vase and on top of it I've got a small piece of floral foam. I'm anticipating that my arrangement isn't going to need a huge amount of flower content, so I've gone quite small with the floral foam. So fingers crossed. If you haven't seen these before, I use them quite a lot in tall glass vases or any tall container really. They're called Compote Bowls and they come in two parts and they sit on top of one another just like this. So you can create quite a basic table arrangement using this sort of reusable plastic container. It's a base that's created by Oasis and I can link it in the description box below. I'll add it to the affiliate links, and should you decide that you want to buy one, you can follow the link to the Amazon shop and you can have one delivered to the house. Now, I know when you add it into a glass vase, you can still see the centre section. Hopefully when I finish putting my flowers in, you won't see that at all. But it is an area that I need to work on when I'm creating the design. If you're a flower arranger and you're just arranging for yourself at home, then you can just sit the Compote Bowl on top of the glass vase. If you're a florist and you're going to be delivering this to somebody, you might be taking it to a wedding or it could be a gift, then you would need to attach the top section to the glass vase so that it doesn't fall apart on the journey. But for today, I've just sat it there on the top. Now what I'm going to start by doing is looking at my beautiful Vanda orchid. To me, it's got that natural arch to the right-hand side. So I could put it tall at the back of my arrangement, or I could have it draping forward. And what I don't want to do, it's such a wonderful flower, very pretty and delicate. I don't want to overfill it and cover it with other flowers. So I'm thinking to make a bit of a statement with it, I'm going to add it in the back of the arrangement to the right-hand side. So we'll give it a nice clean cut on the bottom. I'm going to position it in the back part of my floral foam so that it's angled slightly to the right and it's making the most of that beautiful shape of the Vanda orchid itself. I know traditionally we often go twice the height of the container, but this is going to be a bit more of a modern design. And the longest length in this design is going to be my sideward movement. And I'm going to create that with the Anthurium. This one is called Violetta. It's a wonderful colour. Purple to match my vase. The colour isn't quite the same as the Vanda orchid itself, but it's the nearest I'm going to get. So my longest placement is going to be on the downward fall. So just like we would go tall, so I'm almost creating an asymmetric design with the left-hand side of the arrangement being the longest, with almost a visual line coming from the Vanda orchid through to the opposite side. So a bit more of a contemporary style and not something that we've looked at before. But the vase is quite simple, it's very elegant, quite sophisticated. I felt that too many flowers in this vase was going to be too much and it was going to be quite overpowering and not really in harmony with the vase itself. So what I'm going to start to do is to stagger the length of my anthuriums, and I've almost gone double this length on the opposite side, so we get that asymmetric balance with the design. I've made sure that the weight of the Vanda orchid is towards the back so that my vase doesn't tip forward, and I will add some foliage in to give that extra weight there at the back as well. Now, one thing I also considered when I was prepping this is the Anthurium stem is quite thin. So I didn't need to have a huge piece of floral foam because the stem here is quite narrow. I didn't want to end up with a huge piece of floral foam which needed covering with lots of flowers. Okay, so far we've got 3. This is my 4th Anthurium and I'm staggering them up towards the focal point. So I'm bringing your eye up towards the middle, and then we're going to have one here. So we're raising it up so that we come to that focal point there towards the middle. I'm hoping that I've kept the biggest 2 Anthuriums for my focal point, remembering to keep that design central, so I'm working on the front part at all times. Okay, so we've got a little bit high that was. If I'd have left that in as it was, it's going to hide my lovely orchid. So again, that really natural sweep of the flower on one side. And again, I've grouped the colours. I've grouped the colours, the texture and the variety of that flower so that you get that more modern concept rather than that traditional style of flower arranging. Towards the front, I have some of the lilac, and you might have seen this in a design already. It might be coming in another arrangement soon. This is what we call lilac here in the UK. Genus is Syringa. It's different to the buddleia, it's a different family, but it's got a lovely shape where it cascades forward. So this is going to work really well at the front. It's going to hide that plastic dish that's inside my glass vase. A real splash of colour towards the front. It's a beautiful link with my container and a fabulous link with my Anthurium. Now, so far I've got just 3 pieces in there, and again I've grouped them together and gives that real emphasis there towards the front and helps to cover that plastic dish that's on the inside. I've got one more smaller piece. This is going to work well draped down over the front as well. And straight away now I've got the widths, I've got height, and I've got some depth starting to form where your eye is going to travel through from the front to the back. Now I'm going to aim for one really short Anthurium here in the front, and what I'm going to do is be a bit selective and choose one that's angled forward, and that's going to sit really neatly in that centre section there. Gorgeous. So we've got that lovely fluffy texture of the lilac against that flat, almost plastic appearance of my Anthurium in the middle. Now this one, of course, is probably a florist material. You can sometimes buy them in bunches in the supermarket, but if you wanted to replicate this design, consider buying it as a houseplant from a DIY shop or a garden centre. Often you'll find them in supermarkets. They're relatively inexpensive. You can cut the flowers off them and use them in an arrangement, and then you can put the plant in the garden or keep it in the home. And this design also works really well with calla lilies or arum lilies, and they are also often in the supermarket quite inexpensively priced. Phalaenopsis orchids and Vanda orchids again are quite often sold here in the UK in the supermarkets, and you can get a really good long-lasting flower arrangement without buying any cut flowers, but investing in a few plants. In this area here, I'm going to use some of the cordyline leaves, but this time I'm going to roll them. So I'm going to roll them over on themselves and then push the stem back through the centre rib, so we have that rolled effect with the leaf. And rather than my leaves being quite overpowering and a bit large on this side here, I now have a much more neater design. And you can do this with a lot of tropical foliage, or what I refer to as tropical foliage, because for me here in the UK, it is quite tropical and quite unusual. And like I said about buying material in plant form, you can definitely do this with the foliage as well. And now I've got that really heavy emphasis on the foliage on the one side, which counterbalances my sweep on the opposite side. Now I'm not planning on adding any foliage in with the Anthuriums because I wanted to keep this design quite simple and to show you that you can do quite striking designs with a minimal quantity of flowers. But if you have something that cascades really lovely, you could add that in on the opposite side as well. I just didn't feel I had foliage here that was going to do it justice. A soft fern, maybe the foxtail fern would have looked wonderful, but today I haven't got any. But what I do have is some of the grey fern. This is plebomium. Oh, I'll write it down because it's easier to write than it is to spell. But it begins with a PH, and it's a beautiful long leaf. And this is going to work well tucked in at the back. Because it's going to drape forward, it's going to help me cover that plastic centre part inside my vase. Remember to cut your materials before you put it into the floral foam so that it gives it the best chance to live. These are also from a house plant. So what I often do here in the studio is that I keep a variety of different textured plant material. It helps me if I'm creating buttonholes and I want an unusual colour, or I want something different so that the buttonholes don't all look the same. I might want to add just a bit of grey colouring into a bridesmaid's bouquet. And sometimes it's more efficient for me to be able to have plants here that I can access quite quickly. So you can see now at the back, I've just used those lovely leaves there to create that grouped texture again at the back. What I'm also going to do here at the back section is I'm going to bring another of the Anthuriums in this area here, because I need again to bring that depth into the arrangement and that three-dimensional effect. At the moment, all the flowers are towards the front. They're all angled and facing forward. I'm at risk of my vase tipping forward because the weight of all those flowers is at the front. So it's now important for me to get some of that weight towards the back. And because I have a very short piece of foam, I have to be quite selective with the position that I'm placing these into. So one a little bit further down. So what I don't want to do is make them too long, because they'll impact on this longer side and they'll disrupt that shape that I'm trying to achieve. If we look at it from the front, I just want to see how that's coming together. I think that's working really well. And I've got room, I've got one more Anthurium, so I'm just going to tuck it in here, because I really do need to start covering the foam there in the centre. Now you might notice that what I'm trying to avoid doing is touching this part of the flower. This is actually a leaf. It's a modified, it's called a bract. It's a modified leaf. The flowers would come up on this centre part here. So what I'm trying to do is to avoid handling this area here, because the oils and the natural waxes in your finger tends to damage the leaf itself. So I'm going to hold it by the centre spadix part and get that in nice and close to the floral foam. I've almost achieved full coverage there without using too much flower combination. Now to get the lilac just travelling through from the front to the back, and again to aid the depth that I talk about all the time, I've got one more stem, and this is going to help bring that texture and the colour all the way through to the back. It's quite a simple design, quite elegant. I don't want to overfill it and overcrowd, but I know from past experience that if you've got a tall container, you really need to be careful and considerate of the balance of the arrangement. So that final piece can tuck in there at the back. And I've now only got this small piece of floral foam to hide there. So I'm going to try two options. I've got some moss, which is always handy for filling in little gaps, but I've also got one of the cordyline leaves left. I'm a bit worried that this is going to be too big and too overpowering. So I've just cut it down slightly smaller. We're going to roll this one and put it into place and see how it's going to work. It's either going to be perfect or it's going to be slightly too big. So we'll try and see how that's going to come together. I'm actually quite pleased with how that's turned out, because it's given me some dark colouring, and that aids recession as well and makes your eye travel through to the back. So there's a small bit of floral foam showing here at the top, and I think if I'd have had one more Anthurium in the packet, I would have been able to cover that top section without using the moss. Now I really like how that's turned out. It's a bit different from what we've done before. The overall harmony works really well together. It's a delightful colour combination with the base. I would probably in future use a different saucer for the top of my container, because I can see a little bit of that plastic dish in the middle. But I think, you know, for practicing, and if it was just for myself in the home, I would be really pleased with that. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, if you're new here, hello, my name is Sharon. It's great to see you. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. So bye for now.